Welcome to the FCFP College Football Podcast. We're recording at Hans and Franz Beer Garden for the first time.
Hot dog. Drinking Warsteiner beer in Hans and Franz talking
Gross.
college football. Yeah.
It's hard to beat.
You can hear the glasses clink.
Usually the kind of football that they have here involves a soccer ball. So we're glad to represent a little bit more of a more entertaining sport. Sorry, Audie.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start this week?
Well, recap Clemson, Texas A&M.
I heard of it.
As a Clemson fan, I knew, and I told you this was going to be a crazy, close, tough game. And you could, Clemson's going to beat the crap out of them. Man, it's like a heart attack game as a Clemson fan watching A&M.
Sorry.
Now, introduce our guest.
Our esteemed guest. I'd like to think maybe you could replace Jay Spivey, but it probably isn't going to happen. This is my dad, Randy Thompson, University of Alabama Alumnus. Thank you very much. He knows so much because he graduated from the capstone of higher education. Thank you very much for being here, Dad.
My pleasure. It's a
Roll Tide.
great speed. Roll Tide.
Well, I'm just thrilled to death that I'm here with two Thompsons, and over to the side is the third Thompson. The wife is watching us record, which is fantastic. This is wonderful.
Mom held me in her womb with my twin brother Ben and went to every Clemson home game for that season. Thank you very much, Mom. Go Tigers.
Well, there's one thing you got to remember about your mom. Every Saturday morning she gets up and clips the TV schedule.
Yes.
For all the upcoming games for Saturday. And then she says, this is on at 3:30. This is the 1 o'clock game, and we got to be here. So don't ask anybody over for
I actually did not know this.
Yep.
God bless her.
Wow.
God bless her.
Amazing.
Randy, thanks for coming on the show with us. We really appreciate it.
It is great, but let me comment real quickly, if you will, about the Clemson, Texas A&M. A couple of things. Apparently there's a rumor that I heard that the officials got together and they were overheard singing the song. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. It sounds, from the reaction, it sounds like some of the people here actually saw the games. I tell you, number 99 for Clemson reminded me of Rodney Dangerfield because he had to keep adjusting his stinking jersey because he got held. But that was one of the things that I saw in that game. The other thing was, it's kind of like a cat with a mouse. I don't think Clemson really got too. They knew they were going to come away with a W, but it was a great game. It's fun, great experience, and Tigers are on a path, really solid path. And we'll talk about this Georgia Southern in a minute, but it looks like a great path to go undefeated.
It's something, Randy, as Clemson fans, and we're all Clemson fans. I mean, y'all love Alabama too, and to be honest, I'm becoming more of an Alabama fan because of y'all. So through friendship, I like Alabama more than I ever did. I was never against them, like USC or Georgia or any of that stuff. But I tell you, as a Clemson fan, the A&M game scared the crap out of me because everything that I fear came true. So A&M either had the best game of their year, and so the quarterback had the best game he's ever going to have. That dreadlocked wide receiver Rodgers he had the best game of his life, or they're really that good. And we'll find out in 2 weeks whether A&M's for real and they play Alabama tough.
I think we will find out that they aren't.
Well,
I will say this. Jimbo Fisher has certainly been an improvement for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we saw what Kevin Sumlin isn't, with another L on the... Disappointing as it may seem, it didn't look like Jimbo Fisher in the press was ever going to change much of his offense. He was very deliberate about making sure everybody knew they're not changing from the pro style. However, they certainly did Saturday night. What I saw was a chess game. This was fantastic college football.
It was.
Clemson would put a spy on Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond was aware of it. He had a better time in the second half. He had half of his yards in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Most of it came from him scrambling and just making plays. tipped balls. It had bad ref calls. It had missed penalties. It had questionable judgment on pylon cams that we can't use, which is very strange. This game had implications beyond just the score at the end.
It was a soap opera.
It was terrific.
I mean, it was drama in every sense of the word, drama. Almost the entire second half. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that, but as a Clemson fan watching that, I kept thinking, God, the offense needs to do something. But I tell you what it did do. It broke me of wanting a two-quarterback system and Trevor Lawrence getting playing time. They need to play Kelly Bryant. They need to push the run and do a better job out of the offensive line. Got shown up by Texas A&M.
I'm surprised at Texas A&M's performance on the defensive
But they
line.
need to
I'll
get
say
away.
that.
I'm a Trevor Lawrence believer. It's a Jedi Force thing.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, they need to get away from that. They need to play Kelly Bryant and let him seriously take over this team.
That's what he did.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence played for 16 plays, I think.
Yeah.
On 6 drives, if I'm not mistaken. He
Yep.
didn't play a lot. This was Kelly Bryant's team. This was his game. He didn't win it. Nobody won it.
Right.
But I think special teams in particular didn't cost Clemson this game for once, which is something that we need to take away as an improvement for
That's a big
Clemson
deal.
overall.
That's a big deal.
You made the comment. It is Bryant's team, and people keep forgetting what a good quarterback he is. He had 2 tough games last year. Look at this record. He knows how to manage. He's a really good runner. He's heady. He's got the gray matter, but it's tough if you're Trevor Lawrence. Never been on a road game. 100-some-thousand people. He's going in there. I don't care what kind of 5-star quarterback you have.
Right.
And quarterbacks are the most difficult things to project as far as potential. You look at 42 Wilkins. Everybody said he was going to be great.
Right.
He was great. You knew it. Typically defensive players and a lot of times offensive linemen and quite often receivers if they have the right quarterback. But it's really hard to put a kid in that situation like Trevor, who could be fabulous. But give a lot of kudos to the cool head and all the Clemson. Let me tell you about Clemson fans. Clemson fans who made the trip down there, understand Clemson football. They, as the people I talked to, said the same thing. Don't pay any attention to the yak, the clatter. It is Kelly Bryant's team, and he'll be fine, and he was.
I agree.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence is getting some useful reps. He's getting experience for sure. Dabo Swinney clearly has a plan for Trevor Lawrence, but it's not a 2-quarterback system. I'm okay with saying that. It's not. You give Trevor Lawrence opportunities when you can. It's not supposed to be some sort of offensive surprise where, oh my gosh, guess what? You're not prepared for this really tall, really gorgeous white guy throwing the football in Trevor Lawrence, and he can do stuff that Kelly Bryant can't. Kelly Bryant can make virtually everything happen that Trevor Lawrence can, but he's smart, he's a leader, he's seasoned, and he showed it Saturday night. I thought he did a really good job. I thought he got way too much of the blame for that missed snap opportunity on 4th and very, very short at the goal line. We saw a lot of that last weekend when Furman came to Clemson. There were snaps all over the place. Kelly Bryant has done a really good job of not screwing it up in spite of the fact, and I'm not trying to throw the center under the bus here, but it's not Kelly Bryant's fault. He's done a really good job of catching these hikes that are going beyond his shoulder, left shoulder, right shoulder, low, all over the place.
Deshaun Watson didn't go undefeated when he first started at Clemson. He had a lot of learning to do. He learned quickly, and he was the man. But give Trevor a break, give Kelly Bryant props, and let's go forward.
And give Dexter Lawrence a 3 Musketeers and a Milky Way.
I'm telling
that blocked kick I love that. We haven't blocked a kick. I say Clemson hasn't blocked a kick in 2 years. They didn't block anything like that last year. So I was happy to see that. Special teams was a bit of an X factor in this game for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, the defensive line did their job, and they were running all over the place, and they were chasing everybody, and they were doing everything they possibly could. A&M's quarterback had the game of his life, and the Clemson secondary had a tough time.
He had the game of his life, and the football gods were looking down on him with tipped passes, going for touchdowns, and You know, there was a lot of controversy over that the fumble out of the end zone, which,
Right.
if you think about it, it may have played into Clemson's favor if it had gone the other way. But again, this is a bigger statement than just
Right.
the game. That rule is kind of silly,
But I'm
where you
telling
can
you.
fumble anywhere except into the end zone, and that's when it gets turned over to the other team. It's a little bit silly. I think Clemson was the better team. The better team won, but man, what a game. This was exciting.
Jay and I grew up without pylon cams
Right.
and instant replay. Let's
Yeah.
get over it.
You
Let's
can't
get-
use
okay?
pylon cams for these reviews.
Well-
but because everything is reviewed in college football. That's a big difference between college and NFL. But they don't have a dedicated camera on the end zone end line.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, if it's that important.
But it's more basic than that. Don't fumble the football, and you don't have a
You know
controversial
what, Jay?
call.
Thank you very
Wow.
much. Fundamentals are fundamentals.
Hold on to the football is the lesson to be learned for the Clemson A&M
So
game.
Mr. Spivey brings sanity to the conversation.
So let's go to Georgia, South Carolina, because to me, I'm a South Carolina graduate. I'm a Clemson fan. I went to both schools. But there is something about, I can't necessarily root for South Carolina, and South Carolina plays Georgia tough, and I'm not a big Georgia fan. So I don't really struggled with who in the world do I want to win this game. And in the end, Carolina didn't play Georgia very tough this year.
Did you get to see any of this game?
I watched all of it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Congratulations, I guess. South Carolina's first touchdown came on a trick play.
Right.
A lot of weird things didn't go Georgia's way, like a tipped interception, that sort of
Right.
stuff.
It
Georgia
could have been
looks
worse.
Georgia looks stunning.
Right.
They really look the part of a championship caliber team again.
You know what South Carolina looked like? Looked like they played tough, but they looked like they played tough, but they look like they did in the Clemson game last year. Like they're outclassed, they're playing tough, and there's no way they can win this game.
And they weren't going for it. This was something that really bothers me as a fan of the sport was you're an underdog, it's at home, you're expected to at least be a little bit more competitive than this. But they kept throwing these 4-yard slant routes over and over and over again. They weren't attempting deep balls in spite of the fact that they have an elite deep ball threat and a
Right.
quarterback who can get it to Deebo Samuel. I'm really kind of disappointed with the coaching in this game in that they didn't try to win the game from a coaching perspective. It bothers me.
It showed two different programs at two different stages. Georgia's very elite, and South Carolina's getting better.
That's Jay, that is precisely the case. You've got two really good coaches, I think. Georgia does not look like a Mark Richt team. And Carolina is going to be coming on because they have some good talent. They're recruiting good talent, but don't sell Muschamp short. The guy's going to win a lot of games. He beat Khaki Pants. He really had an incredible comeback. So I think you see two good coaches in the SEC East, which is a bit dodgy in itself. But I think those are the two, if you can call them premier teams. I think Georgia's like all the red teams this weekend. The red teams look great. I don't care. All
red
red teams.
teams.
No, they did. Oklahoma looked great. Alabama
did.
looked pretty good. OSU, the Buckeyes are.
They beat a red team,
They're going to
so
beat a red team. Well, the
beat
Rutgers.
Rutgers.
OH.
But red.
OH.
Yeah, so it's a lot to work out. But I think you're seeing. I think Muschamp is going to have a solid, disciplined team playing good defense, and I think they'll do fine.
I think so too. But
they're
I
gonna-
know
they're gonna
Kirby
surprise.
Smart's going to do it at Georgia.
They're going to surprise somebody this year.
Sure.
South Carolina is, but they're not going to surprise everybody.
Who are they going to surprise? Florida? I mean, let me make one thing real clear right here on the podcast. Nobody, and I mean nobody, beats Kentucky 32 years in a row, okay?
Right.
Nobody. Not even Florida. Sorry, Dan Mullen.
Well, it's just like Clemson with the old string they had with Virginia.
Yeah.
And they beat Virginia for 20, 30 years straight. And then all of a sudden Virginia wins like 2 out of 3. They're like, oh my God, the world's off its axis or whatever. And I picked that game because I thought the point spread was horrible. And I thought, Florida's not that good. And Florida's another program, just like Carolina. It's better this year, but they're not at the point of being a Georgia, a Clemson, an Alabama, an Ohio State. And as much as Florida fans would like to think they are, they're not.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because of the talent down there. We'll see how Dan Mullen does with the Florida talent.
Right.
All these incredible players that come out. Of course, what happens this weekend, South Florida puts up 49 on Georgia Tech with,
Picked that one, by the way.
Yeah, and that was incredible. But once it'll be interesting to see how it pans out with Rick at Miami and everybody else in UCF,
Right.
USF, and all that other stuff, to see if Dan Mullen, who is a really good coach, and keep in mind he was a head coach. He did well at Mississippi State. So he has a chance, instead of being, what Florida done in the past has gotten, offensive coordinators for head coaches.
Right.
Didn't work out. So we'll see how the SEC East goes there.
Don't forget, Dan Mullen was the quarterbacks coach for both Tim Tebow and Cam Newton, who got kicked out of Florida when nobody else could get kicked out. Cam Newton got relatively kicked out for that.
Dak Prescott.
And as a Clemson fan, I'm going to say that we're done talking about South Carolina and Georgia.
Okay, fine.
Chicken. It's what's for dinner.
Elon, Clemson's Furman, 45-7.
I don't think you can use that word anymore.
And that upset me to no end.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I did no research about the Elon fighting Christians who are now the Phoenix.
Kenai.
And it bothered me that when I found out the score, that Furman got crushed by almost within 3 points of the same margin that Clemson beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Furman was picked in the top 20 in their division and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Elon broke them.
Yeah, but let's keep in mind, Jay, here's the magic thing for all the sports fans who get the helmet schedule. You get your SEC helmet schedule, and you got to go get that thing. Just Google helmet schedule, because it shows you what happens, who plays whom when, and
Right.
that's a big deal. It was a tough environment. You guys were right there on the field. It was 150 degrees.
Oh my God!
And and no wind, and it was a tough game for Furman, given the lack of depth. And I think they'll come back, but it takes you days and a couple of rounds of the ice baths and some IVs and everything else to recover from that game. So let's just keep that in mind. And mentally, it's another thing.
It surprised me.
Me too.
Wanting Furman to do well. You play the number 2 team in the country with this great defensive line and all this stuff, and you get beat like you should, and that you would think the next week that anyone you play would be easy in comparison, and obviously it isn't. And
No.
Elon cracked their egg over and over and over again.
I don't understand it.
I don't
They
understand
did the
it.
same thing last year. I can't remember the game, but Furman was so much fun last year. They were very good. I was high on my picks, and I was very accurate with Furman for the most part. But the one that I got wrong, I got dead wrong. It wasn't Elon, but I would have picked against Elon this time too. I don't understand it. I'm disappointed, but F you all the time.
Next week they're playing Toothpaste U.
Colgate.
Colgate. So, again, I have no idea whether Colgate's a good team, bad team, whatever. Hopefully Furman's going to step up to the plate. And it's time for Furman. They played 2 tough games. They're supposed to be a really good team.
Yeah.
They're
But
tough.
if they go 0-3, that's not a good start of the season.
Keep in mind, we're talking a team that plays Southern football. Now, Colgate is in an area where men wear socks with sandals. I got no respect for that type of thing, Birkenstocks and sandals. But they will be fine. It's Ivy League. They'll be back, and
I hope so, because I don't want to be talking next week with Furman being 0-3, because that's not the way they saw their season go. All right, did Alabama play a game this past weekend?
I think they played Arkansas State, which was one of the most proficient
Arkansas State was
offensive in the country last year.
That was Danny Ford's team when he went to I think he went to Arkansas State after he left Clemson and so on. They will have. It's weird when you look at the NFL and see some of these receivers. They have really good receivers, and we will see some of those guys playing on Sunday, no doubt. But no, that was 40-0 at the half. Tua Tagovailoa, same,
Tagovailoa.
Tua Tonga.
As I say,
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah,
I
call
Flawless
it-
on third down
Tagovailoa.
through the season, by the way. He's
I call it-
12 for 12.
I call it Tua Aloha.
Tua Tagovailoa. And we got to remember Tua
God bless you.
Tagovailoa because his brother is on the team also. But it was.
Jalen Hurts looked improved as a passer, whether or not anybody wants to believe it or not. But here's the thing. Tua is... I'm a Jalen Hurts fan. A lot of
I know.
Alabama fans are. When Jalen took the field, they were cheering for him, which I was very happy to see. However, when the game ended, all of the players from both sides of the field, in particular from Arkansas State, were going to... Everybody wants to spend time with Tua.
Tua's
He's
the man.
special. He's treated special.
he is.
It's a very strange place to be.
He's the
Holding
football
Arkansas
god.
State to 7 points means something whether you like it or not. I did not expect Alabama to be this elite looking in week 2, especially on offense. Alabama looks to be very complete, which again, I'm surprised they have their first road test in SEC play against Ole Miss, but Ole Miss allowed 41 points against who did they play?
Old sis.
It was the Girl Scout Troop 29
true.
of Arkansas.
I wanted to say Southern Illinois, but I think that was Louisville, wasn't
It
it?
was the Salukis of Southern Illinois.
It was
Southern
The
Illinois.
Salukis
41
are a
points is
tough
too many.
team. Those guys down in downstate Illinois, they eat corn and wrestle pigs and all that.
So
stuff.
let's talk about that.
Okay.
Alabama at Ole Miss.
Yes.
So lots of noise, lots of craziness.
Toddy toddy.
It's for Ole Miss. This is the height of their year, is having Alabama at their home stadium.
Yep.
It's true. When they beat
And it-
Alabama at home a few years ago,
Right.
tore down the goalpost. It was a
Right.
legendary moment. Katy Perry dancing on the bars.
Right, right.
Great time to be in Oxford, but it won't be this weekend. Ole Miss is just, they don't have depth. Those
don't have
sanctions are hitting
defense.
them hard. They have next to no defense and zero depth.
Yeah.
Against an Alabama team that looks, like I said, surprisingly elite in week 2. I think I'm expecting a bludgeoning against the Land Sharks.
We'll see. We were at the Ole Miss game last year, Alabama Ole Miss, and Tua came in and threw a couple passes and had a pick 6 with Levi Wallace and all that stuff. And
Wallace
it
was on fire.
He was, and that was Shea Patterson, a quarterback for Ole Sis, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what
That's
happens.
right,
Just-
Shea
no, no, no.
Patterson. How can we forget?
Yeah,
Shea
well, we
Patterson?
can forget him
Now
until we
he's
start
moved on
talking
to
about
bigger
But-
and
the
tender things.
khaki pants. But let's be clear about what happened last year. That was an elite defense. Secondary, which is not there this year. It's a bunch of teenagers Alabama
Right.
has in the secondary. So you got to realize that. And the other thing though is it's a good group of linebackers and a good D line. But to your point, Gray Thompson, there is no way that they can stop the Alabama offense. It's just and I'm not saying that to be. Just to be obnoxious or anything. It's just
You're not alone.
It's just too much talent.
Tua much,
Well,
I would say.
and just like App State can't beat Penn State, there is too much talent on the Penn State team. It is college. Now, I foresee Ole Miss for about a quarter playing tough, that it's close, that you're like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And then by the beginning of the fourth quarter, you're going to go, holy cow, the steamroller is breaking spirits at Ole Miss.
Second quarter, by the way.
Well,
think
no, I mean, the breaking spirits is going to be third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, where it's
Sure.
like, then it's up a fair number of points. But what's the point spread?
Second quarter.
What's the point spread?
I don't know. It's Monday. It's not out yet.
So what would be the point spread? 20 points?
Yeah, it would be about 2021. I would
Probably
think.
24.
So if Ole Miss is within 15, 18 points in third quarter, Ole Miss is going to think, hey, we're still in this. Well, you get to the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, and all of these machines on the Alabama offense and defense start kicking in. That fourth quarter is going to be like not that big scoring, but that dominating, like, granted, I see this being a 30-point game victory. I think Ole Miss is going to be in it in their mind for a couple of quarters, but Alabama is going to be in control of the entire game.
And it could very well play out. You forget I'm an old Alabama guy. I can remember
Right.
when we'd go down and play Tulane in Tulane Stadium in New Orleans, and we'd win 10-7,
Right.
and it happens a lot. However, this team, there's a lot of things that have happened at Alabama this year. They're different. Number one, special teams is outrageous. We haven't had a special team situation like this.
Except for extra points. Sorry.
That's history because Belovis is now kicking.
That is a
extra.
mystery.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
mystery for
It
sure.
is, and it is what it is. But the thing is, if there is the Alabama front is going to play well, the linebackers will play well. If the quarterback has a chance to throw to some talented receivers, that could be a problem. You can't do that all day and
Right.
go 3 and out against Alabama. And if the quarterback takes a couple of solid hits, it's not going to be fun for Ole Miss because it could be rolling downhill. Alabama's going to got so much depth and talent offensively. I don't see Ole Miss stopping them. So let's review this next week. But I just don't see that happening. To your point, Gray, Ole Miss is not recruited yet well, and I think Alabama does have some things that this young team defensively needed to look at and work on. They've been doing that, and there's the offensive line as well as they protected in spots did not push enough. They have some work to do, so I think we'll see how that goes. Be interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, to wrap up the Alabama game with Ole Miss, I don't think is as good as Louisville. Well-rounded. So
Agreed.
if that's the case, if this is any way, shape, or form a close game for a quarter or two, that's Alabama's fault or Ole Miss having the game of their life. But that's college football.
This is, again, why I think it's not going to be a very competitive game for most of the second half because their yards have come mostly on the ground, and Alabama, again, has been able to stop the running game.
And Ole Miss is going to be shocked at how bad they are in the air.
I think that's
Could be. Land shark.
So
okay. That's good. Wrap that
Beats
one up.
land shark.
Marshall at USC in Columbia. Is Marshall worth anything this year? Does anybody know anything about Marshall? Because I don't.
They're
Is this
not
a
in their
cupcake game?
conference.
Marshall?
Marshall's not the Marshall of years past.
No, they're not Georgia Southern.
Right.
And I'm serious. Clemson plays Georgia Southern, and that's a tougher team, Jay. It really is.
So South Carolina's going to recover from the Georgia game, and they're going to beat up on Marshall. Right?
Right.
South Carolina's pace was supposed to help them. What it ended up doing was kind of shooting their defense in the foot. But like I said before, their pace was deliberately structured around getting consistent first downs, which they weren't able to do.
Right.
They'll be able to do that against Marshall, but it doesn't necessarily help them in the long run. I think they beat Marshall. I think it's fine. But I'm not convinced until they start throwing the ball deep. Bentley can get it done. I'm not sure if he's the guy to get it done anyway. Debo Samuel was dropping passes too, but they weren't going to beat Georgia. They just need to change the game plan. It's not the tempo. It's the plan from top to bottom.
Whatever the point spread is in the USC-Marshall game, I'm taking USC.
Right.
So I figure they're going to be hot after this last game, and practice this week is going to be tough.
It is.
And I just, it's like Clemson playing Georgia Southern. Unless Georgia Southern has the best small school quarterback in America, Clemson is going to crush them after the heartache, heart attack crap they went through with Texas A&M.
There were coachable moments against Texas A&M. The missed fumble, for example. There were missed assignments.
Missed interceptions. All kinds of
Special
stuff.
teams did have room to improve, but penalties that are fixable, coachable. Clemson was definitely the better team. I think I want to send a message to the entire Clemson family to say, enjoy this time. This isn't a one-season freak show that you're witnessing. This is a program that has a trend to be nationally competitive year in, year out. You're going to face adversity. They handled it well, but this is good. Clemson nearly lost to Troy at home when they instead ended up winning the national title. These things happen.
Right.
Enjoy this
And that's why we love
time.
college
Let it
football.
happen.
So, yes, Georgia Southern could come in and have the greatest one quarter of their existence and still lose this game by 30 points to Clemson.
They will, but what'll happen is not quite the same as Texas A&M. They don't have a passing quarterback. They run. What do? They run the same option as Georgia Tech. The good news.
Well, it's good practice for Georgia Tech. Then.
Thank you very much, because next week
it's perfect.
Clemson goes to Atlanta.
Thanks, South Florida.
And I hate Georgia Tech.
Well,
As a old school Clemson fan, that's the one school that makes me nervous is Georgia Tech.
well,
Because, they get the ball with 8 minutes left, down by 3. And it takes them 7 minutes to drive down the field, and they beat you.
they do. But the other thing is, when you play Georgia Tech, you got to watch out for injuries.
Yeah, your
because
knees.
the way
It's a
and they
real
do. That's the
concern.
way they run their
Right.
offense.
It's like, to me, it seems like a cheap shot game,
Well,
but it's not.
It's
They
okay.
can't practice the
football.
same way other teams can because of the style of offense they have, which means they're not prepared to tackle the right way.
It just
So
sets up well though for Clemson.
I'm projecting to take whatever the spread is in the Georgia Southern Clemson game, because I got a feeling Clemson's going to be, again, even though they won, it's just like South Carolina practice this week on defense. Man, Venables is going to be killing the defense over the stuff they let up happen to the Texas A&M.
I heard the linebackers getting a lot of slack. I heard the secondary getting a lot of the blame for this game. The truth is, things just ended up going Texas A&M's way a few times.
Right.
They had a spy. Jimbo Fisher, again, did a really good job of coaching up his quarterback to either look for the spy or make a play. When Clemson would bring 4, he knew what to do. When they brought 7 or 8, he would get the ball away. It was good coaching in a way that Kevin Sumlin didn't do. This week against Georgia Southern is cleaning up mistakes. Clemson made a lot of fixable, coachable mistakes that, sorry, Georgia Southern, but you're going to be the victim, and so is everybody else
It's
for the
not
rest of the
gonna
season
work,
because nobody
though.
else is that tough.
Nothing works. Georgia Southern will not be. Does not have the receivers. They do. They run this offense. Clemson will clean it up, and it won't be competitive. Even though Georgia Southern will have a good year with the offense they run in their conference again, but it won't be close.
Right.
What'll happen is it'll get and the biggest problem for Clemson is not fixing. In my point of view, it's just recovering from being at 100 and something degrees with 100 and something thousand people, getting back, getting your body back.
Back in the routine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Back in the saddle again.
Now, the only other big game is this coming weekend is Ohio State at TCU.
This is the last game that we don't see Urban Meyer.
Well, I got a strange feeling, and you may or may not hear it here first. I think TCU wins this game. I think Ohio State leaves Texas with their tail between their legs.
Ooh.
And that all of a sudden, finally, all this urban thug Meyer crap has an effect on the road in Texas against TCU. I watched TCU this past weekend. Granted, Ohio State is stellar, more talent than anybody but Alabama in the country. TCU is tough, and
tough.
TCU is out to prove a point with a chip on their shoulder that Ohio State doesn't have. And this could be one of those great college games where the little guy comes up and beats the big guy.
They've got a good coach there at
Yeah.
TCU. His name is Patterson. He's
I like Gary
done this
Patterson.
before. They're going to have their little guys running around, and it's at TCU, which is going to be about 115 degrees on the field, and they got I hear what you're saying, and it could absolutely happen, Jay. I like the way you think.
We find out a lot about Ohio State, not so much about TCU this weekend.
We do.
TCU's a good team. Ohio State's supposed to be above everybody else. And we find out this weekend whether Ohio State truly should be playing for the national championship at the end of the year.
They won't be, and I'll tell you why. They're going to, and here's why. I'll tell you, they're not going to win the conference. They will not match up against Wisconsin. Wisconsin, in my opinion, is one of those other
They're
big.
tough.
They are tough. They play that stinking lunch pail They
They
are.
love cheese.
They love to hit you.
It's
Cattle.
that Boston College offensive defensive line. We're gonna knock you over crap,
You got it.
and that stuff worries me as a Clemson fan because you don't want to play that team,
You do not.
right?
Let me
believe-
just say this about Ohio State at TCU. There's a reason why we're talking about West Virginia and Oklahoma in the Big 12. It's because TCU is third place right now,
Right.
for sure.
And Oklahoma, by the way, looks scary.
They do.
They-
I
they
don't
haven't
want to
missed
play
a
them.
beat.
I don't want to play them ever.
They don't have a defense still, but they are better without Baker Mayfield than they were.
And
they've
they'll
got a better
score
team.
60 points to your 52.
Lincoln Riley is an exceptional Big 12 head coach, for sure.
Right.
He's right where he belongs. Oklahoma should be real happy that they replaced Bob Stoops with Lincoln Riley. But again, TCU, I don't think has what it takes to beat Ohio State, even at home. I really don't.
Well, for all our listeners out there, we started to kind of wrap this up. IonGreenville.net is doing a pick'em thing every
Yes.
week. And I have to say something. I don't ever consider
That
myself,
concludes this episode.
No, we're not stopping yet. I don't consider myself a pick'em kind of guy. You know, I figure I'm right in the middle of everybody else out there. And, you know, I pick some good games, whatever. But
Whatever.
so far in 2 weeks, I am 27-17. That's a 61% win percentage. I am 43rd out of 200 and something people in the pick'em. I am only 4 picks out of first place. And Gray,
Yes?
what's your record with the Ion Greenville pick'em?
I feel like
contest?
I'm 1-0 in giving you advice for the last 3
But I'm
years
gonna,
when we
I'm
were
gonna
doing
tell
this
you,
on a
I'm going to
podcast.
tell you what your pick'em record is.
Damn it.
You are 23-21.
Yeah.
So you're 4 games behind me, and I'm 4 games behind first place.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you something about Iron
Yap,
Greenville.
yap.
Just
Just talking, Jay.
That's great, and we'll see
this is
how
week
this,
2,
this-
buddy.
this
Just
is
remember
September.
that. Week 2.
Anybody out there, if you sign up for Iron Greenville to do the pick'em, the nice thing about it for me is that they send me an email saying, "Don't forget to
Right,
do the picks,"
right.
which is great because I forgot to do the picks because I got Friday I'll do the picks, right? Wait a minute, there's a game Thursday, so if you're going to do this, and it's a great thing to do, but they once you're registered, they remind you to make your picks because
Well, now that I'm 4 games ahead of Gray,
You finished?
and Gray, when we started this, was like, oh, we ought to bet something.
I'm still ready to do that, by the
So-
way. Bottle of scotch.
Do y'all all remember the original Matrix movie?
Oh, absolutely, that's the
And
best.
there was
Something
this
like the
moment.
Matrix.
There was this moment when Keanu Reeves finally had this
Don't do it.
this great little thing. So on a podcast, it's hard to explain, but you kind of hold your arm out and you extend your hand
Yeah.
and you do this little bring it on
Or you
kind of
tickle,
sign.
tickle me.
So Gray, I'm telling you that now. I've never felt confident in picking stuff, but with a 4-game lead, we need to figure out by the next couple of weeks
Go on.
what we're betting for the end of the season.
We?
And it doesn't need to be money. It needs to be better than that.
Favors?
Favors.
Okay, gross. Listen to me. It's week 2.
I don't mean
I
gross
have
favors.
fun with all this stuff. I do pick'ems for
But
all
I,
of the games.
I,
with
I
my brother.
envision my car.
You're making this serious.
I am envisioning my car getting washed.
I am envisioning you digging a grave with a very shallow shovel. It's in my head, Jay.
Let
I'm
me
gonna
get
sleep
in
so
here and
good
offer
tonight.
up my beer-soaked sausages. Which
There you go.
Yeah, there.
So there will be a Randy Thompson beer-soaked sausage end of the season party
Throwdown.
throwdown.
Yeah.
With great beer,
Yeah.
and whoever we're going to come up with something good.
I'm going to enjoy those sausages, Jay, while you eat a shoe
Well, I'm going to
sandwich.
enjoy them too while you're out washing my car.
Smoking.
It's a good thing to
And we're
drive
going
a
to
Mini.
videotape.
We're gonna be
but-
smoking.
It's a
but
small
when you're,
car.
When you're washing my Mini in a bikini,
Spit shine.
that is going to be the viral video.
In a bikini. Now I want to lose.
That is going to be hilarious.
In November or
In
December.
December.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm telling you.
I don't want to gloss over or forget that North Carolina lost to
Are they still playing football?
Yeah, afraid so.
Really?
No, they're on probation, right?
It
So-
doesn't matter. And that UCF, Central Florida, beat Georgia Tech. I called that one, by the way, but Central
how
Florida
much?
was an. I'm
49
sorry?
to-
How much they beat them by?
I think it was 8 points.
No, it's 49 to 36.
It's a
that right?
decent game.
49 to 36.
Okay.
But UCF, I'm sorry, not
USF.
UCF, excuse me, South Florida was sensational last year for everybody crying about whether or not Alabama deserved to be in ahead of Central Florida, or that non-Power 5 conference teams don't stand a chance. There was an awful lot more that Central Florida could have done last year, including not allowing teams like South Florida to score 60 points on them at home. South Florida was a blast last year. They're a blast this year with Blake Barnett at quarterback.
Oh, look, they're
an awful lot of fun. And UCF, I think North Carolina faces UCF this weekend. Wow, talk about a hot seat.
North Carolina may not win a football game this year.
So
Ooh.
the Fedora.
Listen, this isn't Tennessee we're talking about.
Seriously,
This is North Carolina.
North Carolina may not win a football game this year.
They're not going to be Duke.
No.
Will that be enough to fire Fedora? It should be. Will it be?
Well,
Because Butch Jones,
let's wrap this up.
Vanderbilt goes to Notre Dame. That's
Well,
going to be a
But
scary, fun game to watch.
That's
No,
an
it is.
irrelevant game.
Indy
That's
plays
It will be
Vandy.
fun to watch, people. Go
Indy-
Irish. But
Indy Vandy.
Derek Mason knows what he's doing. He's had a stellar year so far, and this will not be boring. Watch Notre Dame.
That's
and
fine,
Vanderbilt.
but I got to one up you with Missouri at Purdue.
Missouri?
Purdue sucks this
They
year.
Don't.
But
Purdue
Missouri.
sucks.
Okay, the Boilermakers. So they're
So
gonna,
they're horrible.
but they got a really good point guard.
Yep. They're well, hopefully, when basketball season starts, that'll amount to something. But truly, Purdue is horrible
They
this
are.
year.
Okay.
All right, Randy, thank you.
My pleasure. Been great.
Listen,
This is fantastic having
we're
you
recording
on
this
here.
on a Monday. Tomorrow, well, you're probably listening to this on 9/11, which was Bear Bryant's birthday, which my first time in Tuscaloosa was on 9/11. I was so excited. I moved there in late August 2001, and we all got up a little bit early to celebrate Bear Bryant's birthday, and yeah, it's a tough day.
Oh, well.
Well, thanks for the invitation. It's nothing like college football, period. It's nothing like Southern college football.
There's nothing
Double-
like Randy Thompson, dude. Come on,
That's
the
right.
on it.
That's right.
Roll Tide, Pop.
We must be off.
Love you, Dad.
Love you, bud.
Great Thompson, thank you. Hans and Franz, thank you.
Oh, I love Hans and Franz.
Varsteiner, thank you.
I love you the most,
Fed
Varsteiner.
it be. We'll see you, hear you, listen to you next week.
Fet it be.
Could it be?
Thank you.